Right, yesterday, folks, posted a video and I was talking about what I think the Fed decision is gonna be and how it will potentially move the market and how I was positioning myself to make money off of it. All right, so today we had the answer from Mr. Powell, and turns out, I wasn't that far from what I believe was supposed to be what he will say today, and as a result, I think today I made around 3,200 on my phone by buying the entire market, as I told you yesterday. So I'm going to go exactly over what the Fed said, how to expect on what the market is going to behave starting tomorrow, and how you also can start, making and taking these type of opportunities and maybe doing just what, $50 to $100 every single day. All right, so let's get into it. The Fed, today was just one of those days like it was game time. It was game time for the whole Fed committee because the entire market, it was kind of a make or break day. Okay, so what happened? At 1 p.m. Central Time, they made, the decision and they made it public. And immediately when the meeting started, the main indexes, the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, they started shifting from red to green. And about 10, 15 minutes or 30 minutes after, they retraced, kind of waiting on what he will say exactly about interest rates and what they will do about inflation. So today, what the guy said, well, we have two major points when it comes to inflation. You have the tapering, and the tapering is the mechanism on when the Fed decides to slow down the money they have been injecting into the economy at the beginning of 2020 to kind of support the economy going through the pandemic. All right. So this is what we call the bond purchase, right? Because by buying bonds, that's how they make sure there is enough money flowing into the economy. That's why money is so cheap now. All right. Now, they decided that instead of removing the whole 120 billion that they purchase every single month worth of US bonds, they're going to do that. They're going to increase from 15 to $30 billion removal every single month. All right. So that was kind of expected. All right. And I mentioned it on my video yesterday. The second point when it comes to inflation in increasing the interest rates, hiking the interest rates. All right. So by hiking the interest rates or increasing those, they give a signal to the market that we are doing something to actually kill this inflation, which is worrying a lot of people out there, which is worrying a lot of people. They are going crazy about inflation, which kind of makes sense for investors or companies that are high growth, especially in the tech sector. Right. So they decided that we are going to increase the interest rates 3 times starting next year. So not all at once, because I think that was many of the main fears of people, that if all of a sudden they decide to go from 0.25% to 2% or 2.5%, that's going to be problematic for a lot of us, right? And by us, I mean investors in the market. But they decided to say, we're going to do 1, 2, 3, one in 2022, maybe, another one in 2023, and maybe another one in 2024. But there is a but. Because of Omicron, because they believe, especially Mr. Powell believes, that inflation is going to be temporary. And I tend to agree with him, and I've been agreeing with him since he mentioned this, because the real reason behind inflation is first supply chain issues and people not going back to work. All right. So even though the stimulus check and, the unemployment benefits are done, people still have a lot of money. A little bit of money on the savings. 2020 has been one of the record year in the US where people have been saved like never before ever. All right. So because we are seeing now more inventories into businesses, we are seeing, less congestions on the US ports and internationally, I tend to believe that when it comes to next year, things will start to smooth a little bit. All right. There was still going to be inflation, especially when it comes to rent and energy prices. But I believe that people were kind of overreacting on this inflation thing, mainly because they just wanted to see the Fed do something. Because since then, the Fed was kind of doing nothing. Specifically, they were still saying it's going to be temporary, it's going to be transitory. But now that they aggressively or give the impression to the market that they are doing aggressively, especially when it comes to the politics behind it, behind Biden and Jerome Powell, it kind of makes sense. So that's why literally, everything kind of went crazy after the meeting. I mean, you can see that 2% on the Nasdaq, 215%, 163% on the S&P 500, and everything just went boom. All right. But there are still some pockets of the market which are way undervalued. So that's what happened today. Now, how did I position myself yesterday? I told you that I was about to buy the entire market as a whole. Alors, qu'est-ce que j'ai fait? What did I do? I bought the Dow Jones. I bought the S&P 500. I bought the Nasdaq. I wanted to short sell the VIX, the fear gauge indicator, but through my app, I couldn't do that, I guess, because there was too much volume, too much volatility going on. And once Mr. Powell started speaking, the market in Europe were closed. All right. So remember, I lived in Europe. I went to school there. I lived there for 15 years. So I know a little bit how things work there as well. So even though markets were closed, I still had the ability through my app to go through, to buy also the entire French market, the London market, the German market, but also what we call the Euro Stock 50, which is the 50, kind of like the equivalent of the S&P 500, but when it comes to the whole European Union. All right. So I bought all of these indexes, and I was kind of, when it comes down, I buy. When I'm making a little bit of profit, boom, I'm selling and I'm getting in again. I did that, pretty much for 2 hours intensively, I would say, today, but most of my orders were in overnight yesterday. All right. So as a result, this is what I made in total just for today. Profit 32.05. This is in US dollars. All right. So you can also see I bought some Ethereum and Bitcoin just because, I have some positions in Ethereum and Bitcoin just to, kind of swing trade this. But I saw that as soon as markets started to go up, interestingly enough, crypto also started going back up. So, I bought some, I mean, it's not like crazy, positions here. I mean, this is literally like 0.0000 something worth of Ethereum and Bitcoin. And, of this order, I made only $24, worth of Bitcoin. But if you can see here, US 30 is the Dow Jones, the 30 most US companies in the Dow Jones, US 500, S&P X 500 for the S&P 500. And you can see that I have, these orders, 144 here, 158 here, another 113 here, and then the NASDAQ, NAS 100 for the 100 companies in the NASDAQ, so I was kind of, chopping these, back and forth, making a little bit money here and there. I mean, the list is long because, as I mentioned, for 2 intensive hours, I was just, scalping this, as we say technically. Buying, selling, and that's how at the end of the day I was making worth, 3,200. This is one of my records so far, for a single day. But this is because, I was really on my game time as well, because I knew based on the video I posted yesterday that as soon as Powell will start speaking, people will have more comfort, will have more confidence into what to expect for next year, especially when it comes to this inflation, and they're gonna start taking some more risk, which means buying stocks. All right, and when you buy stocks, the market goes up. All right, so I didn't do the same thing for stocks just because I already bought the dip with my cash I had on my brokerage account the week before, and my stocks didn't go up as well. All right, because market was still going down. So the only money available I had was in my in this MetaTrader account. Reason why I didn't buy any stuff because I just didn't have any money. All right, but if I had like only 10K or even 5K, I would have made another swing trade, and it would have been also profitable today. So what I'm doing next, if you look at the future, all right, so markets are closed now, but if you look at what the futures are saying for the US market, hopefully my internet will start working. I bet that they are already green. All right, so futures, where are they? All right, so futures, you can see that everything's already kind of up, including commodities for gold, silver, and even oil. So this usually suspect that we're gonna have a green session tomorrow, but hey, this is after hours. So after hours, You don't have to assume anything until the bell opens the next day. But I will still buy, and I have my open orders, which I'm buying the US markets and the European markets as well. So we're going to see how we're going to go. I'm going to update you hopefully tomorrow if I'm making some money. All right. So let me know in the comment section if you're interested into sharing, and knowing also how to kind of deal with this. And we can maybe, schedule a live session on a weekend and go through that. All right. Thanks for watching, and I see you next one.